everyone, my name is Aru Goyle and I'll be your Jeopardy host for today. Please welcome our contestants, Sherbury, Jacob, and Mackenzie.
I'm Sherbury. I've been at UT since I was 11 and I'm getting my PhD in the fall at 14.
I'm Jacob. I'm an aspiring biology professor at the University of Toledo. I like to play hockey and longboard in my free time.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie Davis. I'm an aspiring nail artist and author.
Today's topics are all about biodiversity. Our first topic is biodiversity, then be positive, then forms of biodiversity, and then what's hurting biodiversity. First up is Jacob.
I'll take biodiversity for 100.
All right. Biodiversity for 100. This is defined as the variety of life on Earth. It includes not just humans, but life from all levels and ecosystems. Scientists study it to understand the web of life.
What is biodiversity? This term is important because when there is more biodiversity, there's a greater variety of crops and what type of crops humans can consume. Greater amounts of biodiversity for species will ensure protection of all and sustainability of other species. And a healthy ecosystem will have high levels of it so that it can protect itself from all kinds of natural disasters.
Jacob starts off strong with 100 points. Pick your next topic, Jacob.
I'll do be positive for 200.
We see bees all the time and take them for granted, but what is their main role in nature?
What is pollination? Bees perform about 80% of pollination worldwide. Pollination is the act of pollen being transferred between flowers to help plants reproduce. As bees spread pollen between flowers, they also collect pollen to help make nectar to feed the colony. This nectar can be turned into honey, which is consumed by humans. Pollination also helps with producing almost 30% of human food, which includes fruits, veggies, and herbs.
That is correct. 200 points for Mackenzie.
I'll do what's hurting biodiversity for 100.
One of the prime harmful factors affecting biodiversity through bees.
What are pesticides? A pesticide called imidacloprid is sometimes sprayed on plants, other times put into the soil where it can remain for more than a year. IMD affects bees' memories and sense of smell, and as a result, bees are unable to find their ways back to their hives because of their disorientation.
Great job. 100 points to Sherbury.
I'll do forms of biodiversity for 300.
Biodiversity hotspot.
What is the ability to share Wi-Fi off my phone with others?
Not the right hotspot.
What is an area with many unique species and a declining habitat area?
Correct. Now let's learn why. A biological hotspot is when over 70% of the habitat of a geographical area with over 1,500 unique or endemic species are lost. Endemic species are species that are only found in one geographical location and nowhere else. An example of each of those, Galapagos Islands, has been its own unique kind of tortoise that differs in species from its neighbors. In biological hotspots, endemic species can only live in this certain area, and any disturbance in their home can have extreme repercussions because they cannot live anywhere else. We're back to Sherbury.
I'll do forms of biodiversity for 200.
This type of biodiversity is the reason we have so many different dog breeds.
What is ecosystem diversity?
Actually, that is wrong.
What is genetic diversity? Studies show that there are many genetic subspecies of dogs, even though they're all under one species. Genetic diversity helps the species because it allows them to change their environment with disease resistance.
Great answer. What's next?
I'll do biodiversity for 300.
What has been happening to biodiversity over the past couple of decades?
What is decreasing? Human activity has dramatically increased the rate of extinction, increasing nearly 100 times the natural rate, based off of fossil records and habitat loss. Pollution, overfishing, and climate change are major reasons for the increase. For instance, the coral reef is dramatically affected by climate change, and it is the home for more than 3,000 species that are now put into danger. This is why the government put the Endangered Species Act into play, protecting more than 2,000 species from being harmed.
Great job. 300 points to Sherbury.
I'll do what's hurting biodiversity for 200.
Some of the way that humans can combat the harms to biodiversity.
What is help beekeeping in your area by buying local honey. Grow a variety of flowering plants in your garden and avoid using pesticides. If you feel you must spray, do so at dusk when the bees aren't out and about. If you see a large mass of bees in a tree, don't harm it and don't panic. Swarms are not dangerous. Call a professional beekeeper to come and carefully collect it.
Sherbury is killing the game.
I'll pick Bee Positive for 300.
Bees help provide these 4 qualities of life.
What is economical, ecological, emotional, and ethical? Economically, about 84% of species humans cultivate depend on pollinators for materials, for medications, raw materials, food for humans and livestock. A global value of over $171 billion per year. Ecologically, bees help conserve the plants, which help hold and replenish the soil that can prevent it from contaminating water sources. Emotionally, pollinators affect the quality of green spaces, which can affect the emotional health of humans. And lastly, they ethically help the conservation of numerous species.
Awesome job. 300 points to Mackenzie.
I'll do forms of biodiversity for 100.
This region of the Earth has the most biodiversity.
What is Antarctica?
Wrong.
What are the tropics? Most biodiversity occurs in the tropics close to the equator. Different regions and biomes of the planet have different levels of biodiversity. Barren places like deserts and mountains have little biodiversity because of their environment. Deserts have extreme temperatures and limited resources to sustain a variety of life, while the extreme environment of a mountain limits biodiversity as well. The second most diverse occurs temperate zones.
Now it is time for the final question for 300. Name all 5 major threats to biodiversity and what would happen if we lost biodiversity.
What are climate change, deforestation, invasive species, habitat loss, and pollution? Changes in climate throughout our planet's history have altered life in the long run. An estimated 18 million acres of forest are lost each year due to human practices destroying the ecosystems which species depend on. Overhunting, overfishing, and overharvesting contribute greatly to the loss of biodiversity because several species are being killed and driven to extinction.
Great answer, Jacob.
The introduction of non-native species into an ecosystem can threaten wildlife, affect human health, and upset economies. Burning fossil fuels and dumping 19 billion pounds of plastic into the ocean every year is a pollution that completely disrupts the Earth's ecosystem, resulting in a harmful aftermath on biodiversity.
And with that, we have finished today's Jeopardy! The winner of today's Jeopardy is Sherbury! As a perk of winning the game, she wins an all-expense paid trip to the Galapagos Islands to witness biodiversity firsthand.